What's going on, everybody? My name is Alec Lehrman, and I'm coming to you with David Feily. He is a guitarist and multi-instrumentalist, recording, touring artist, and educator. He is the musical director for Rhythm Street Movement. He plays with a band called New Sound Underground, as well as Minneapolis String Project. And during this whole COVID-19, he launched a new project called the Quarantine Telefunk Project. And I'm happy to have him on. So David, thanks for being on. This is kind of like a new thing for me.
Thanks for having me. This is fun.
Yeah, man.
It's fun already.
So, I know, man. It's so David, to give you guys some context, David and I, he's a Minneapolis musician, and I was born and raised in Minneapolis, but it was only probably a couple years back during, I think we met at a corporate wedding, the Blue Water Kings. I think that was the first time I ever met you.
Mm-hmm.
Blue Water Kings, for everybody that doesn't know, it's like just a corporate wedding band, and we were kind of put on the same band basically for one night, and we kind of have stayed in touch ever since. So
absolutely,
yeah, man. So David, I feel like, how are you holding up in all this kind of craziness? Are you doing like a lot of tracking from home, or what's been your process dealing with this?
Just trying to balance home life and the music stuff with this kind of extra layer that all my work has to be from home. So I'm doing some teaching via online lessons with Skype and FaceTime and Zoom and all that stuff, and then just recording a ton and trying to find the balance between fun recording projects, because I have all the time to do it now, and stuff that I think will make me money, or work projects and things like that.
Right. So before all this, how are you primarily making money? You're a full-time musician, so how are you primarily making income before all the...
Pretty much gigging. Both with the corporate and the cover band world, and then original music scenes, things like that. I've been trying recently to kind of get into more of the education world, doing some grant writing, especially with that Minneapolis String Project group. It's with a cello player and a violinist, but both of them are kind of genre-defying, really talented guys, and so it's really fun to do, anything from Stevie Wonder to Bach with them. And they both. So what is that? Tell everybody a little bit about what that is. So the Minneapolis String Project is just a string trio. All of us are multi-instrumentalists, but for the most part, the other two guys, Greg Byers plays cello, and Ernest Bisong plays violin. And when you hear this dude, both of these guys, as soon as they take their instruments out of the cases and they get their bows out, they're playing bebop licks, and they're playing fusion and stuff like that. And I was immediately drawn to both of them. The funny story with Ernest, I was super pissed at him even before I met him. It was for I'd heard about him, how great he was, and it was for a Blue Water Kings wedding. Actually, it was for a ceremony, and it was supposed to be guitar and violin, and he was super late, and so I set up the whole ceremony sound system, and people were already coming. I was playing some prelude music and stuff, and he shows up, and I had never met him. I was super pissed at him, but as soon as he started playing, I was like, oh my god, who is this guy? And we just started improvising on some stuff. We played some classical tunes. We improvised on classical tunes. We played some more pop and jazz stuff, and I was mind blown.
So all was forgiven right away.
It was forgiven right away. I was pretty pissed, never having met him. I was like, where is this dude? I guess I can do it on my own, but he showed up and it was great, and I have a fun first meeting story with him.
So do you guys have albums out, or do you perform? Before all this, did you perform around town or around country?
We kind of we haven't done any touring. It's a pretty new group. We have one EP that we put out. We did a couple of recording sessions. We got some good stuff, and some stuff I don't think the quality was good enough to release. But we put out one EP, and there's a 3-song EP with one tune written by each of us and arranged for that group. And so you can find that on Spotify and all that kind of stuff. But
okay, sweet. I'll link that for everybody in the description.
That's a fairly new project. I'm hoping to work on some more really fun originals, as well as some covers, and kind of meld that into an educational type package.
Okay, right on. As far as educational, you mean like, would you, I guess, is it too far looking in the future? Would you partner with some website, or would you kind of launch it on your own, site to be released? Or
so mostly it's going to be actually in person, hopefully with schools and stuff like that. So programs like Springboard for the Arts, or some of the other schools and conservatory type places, both at the grade school level, K through 12, and also collegiate. I think it would be really good to get a lot of those younger kids exposed to a bunch of different styles on instruments that they might be playing, especially like in orchestras and things like that, and show the crossover capabilities of mainly classical type instruments.
Okay. So, and for all the people, to catch everybody up that's viewing that probably maybe have not heard of you, like, so you play a lot of instruments. Like, I know you play guitar, you play mandolin, right?
Yep. Bass, keyboards, trumpet, banjo. I try to kind of do all the strings if I can, ukulele.
Yeah.
Trying to get all my chops together and all that stuff to sound the best that I can.
That's crazy, man. Like, so I was listening, right, for all those people that are out there, like, I've played gigs where David's been on bass and I'm on guitar. So it's not like he's just sitting in the studio, like, and play two chords. Like, you can actually play. It's kind of nuts. Like, how do you kind of keep up your facility with all those instruments, or does it kind of just come naturally and you don't have to, like, practice,
Parts of it come naturally. I would say just for my love of instruments like guitar and bass especially, the practicing kind of comes from the things I'm learning or that I'm writing. Like, I'll shed that kind of stuff just because I love it so much. For keyboard, that was my first instrument, so I was decently strong bassist there, and I feel like I have really good producer chops and I can play certain gigs. Like, I used to do some CCM church gigs where I play grand piano and synth. So I can gig on those instruments depending on the genres and depending on how difficult the stuff is. For trumpet, that instrument kind of has fallen by the wayside a little bit. I actually double majored in college on both guitar and trumpet because I loved both of them so much. And I feel like my ear was first really connected musically because of trumpet. My ear training and my relative pitch all came from that. I feel like I got a good basis with piano, but when you have trumpet, you only have the 3 valves, and you have to hear the notes because the same fingerings cause 5 different notes. You have to just have the muscle memory and everything, all the melodies and the harmony sometimes in your head before you play it, and that did me so much good in college, in ear training classes and things like that.
Wow, so I didn't even know that about the trumpet. I'm like a ignorant guitar player.
Trumpet, I think, is one of the hardest instruments because you have to play every day, and like that's what I was going to say is that has kind of fallen by the wayside because I don't have that many gigs for trumpet. I play some church gigs here and there. I used to be in a horn band where we used to do like Chicago and Tower of Power, and so just for like the love of playing that stuff, my chops stayed in shape. But like the self-care that you have to do for that instrument is insane. Like, I could go a couple weeks without playing guitar, but if you did that for trumpet, you literally, you lose your range. Like, I can't play that extra octave, because I didn't keep it in shape. So that just inherently kind of has fallen by the wayside, but I still really love brass, and I really, my ear feels really connected to the horn. I think because of that different approach that you have to take.
Well, I wish I could play more than just, 1 or 2 instruments. That's kind of crazy. So you went to McNally Smith, right, before?
No, I went to University of St. Thomas.
University of St. Thomas, okay.
I always get lumped in with those. Wires crossed. I always get lumped in with all the McNally guys, and I play with a lot of them. And I hung out there, like, especially like at the end of my St. Thomas years, in like 2010 and 11. I started really meeting a lot more people, and getting out there. And people would hold rehearsals at McNally Smith, and I was playing gigs with guys like Kevin Gastonway, and Zach Schmidt, and guys that went to McNally.
Okay. Right on. Yeah, I remember meeting. I've I've met those cats before. Are they playing now for Corey Wong?
Kevin Steinway is in Patar, Janich.
Yep, the drummer,
both of them are McNally, and Corey was a McNally guy as well.
Okay. And that's no longer happening, right? McNally is
unfortunately.
toast.
Yeah, they closed, last year, 2 years ago? Right before Christmas. It's super
I feel
hard.
bad for those cats.
Me too, man. I mean, I pretty much know at least half the instrumental faculty, that were there. So. Dang,
well, they have that. I was like, well, they probably have experience in this craziness. Then this Corona probably doesn't scare them at all. It's like, oh, I've been there. They had the rug pulled right out under them. For everybody that doesn't know, I feel like this college just up and closed one day, and all your credits don't transfer, and you're out of a job. Students are out of a diploma. It's wild.
It is wild. The whole music school thing in the first place is wild, and then to have that stuff get put on top of it is just.
Why is the music school for you wild? I never went to music school, so I'm just curious what your opinion is on that.
Oh man, okay. So the reason that I majored in music was because I pretty much didn't know what else to do. I thought that I was on the right track to do a lot of good things academically, musically.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that really helped me as just in academia was going to a liberal arts college instead of an actual music college, because it made me think in other ways, which I really enjoyed, having a balance of deep thinking for something not for music. And then also the other thing I did for me was it made me go out and find my own connections, and it made me push myself in such a smaller pool, going to a private university that was not music based. And in hindsight, if I had more of my academia game together, I probably would have majored in music ed in performance. But in hindsight now, I wish I hadn't only majored in music. I wish I had double majored or minored in music. Because while I got a lot of good experiences, especially in doing the guitar and trumpet in a whole slew of genres, in hindsight, I feel like that if you really want to work on certain things, that you can do it with a good teacher, or now with the internet, or you can figure out ways to become a really good musician without paying for it or without going to music school per se. Some people I think need to be in that environment, and they need to be pushed in that more academic way. But for me, I think at the time it was just being young and not knowing what I wanted and not knowing how to make a career out of anything. And so in a kind of backwards way, going to music school was good, but going to a school that wasn't super music-y also was good, if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. I mean, being a devil's advocate, couldn't you do anything basically besides being a doctor or a nurse or a lawyer? You could kind of self-teach yourself a lot of different skills. So what's the difference between music and, I guess, anything else?
Exactly. Yeah, and I'm kind of learning that in hindsight, especially as a teacher, there are pretty much no students that I would recommend to go to music school. Even the ones that I think are really good, but the ones that I think are really good have the drive to teach themselves. And so I would recommend them to use their resources in other ways. Find a really good teacher that can teach you at that level, or find the resources something like the Beato book, Rick Beato's theory book.
Yep.
Or some of the guys like Chad Lefowitz Brown.
Who's that?
He's that insane saxophone player. I think he was teaching at San Francisco Jazz Conservatory, and he's been on tour with Chris Bodie for a while, I think. But an insanely good-looking guy and an insanely good saxophone player. But he comes out with a ton of really good educational material. But I feel like if you can have people that point you in the right direction, and if you meet the right people, that goes for any job or any profession, that you can still make a name for yourself and do awesome things in the music industry without having to go to school for it or pay for it in that way.
Right. I guess it's a case by case. You went, you're doing fine. You're I didn't go, and I'm doing fine. So I feel like it's probably a case by case basis. It's like
it's kind of like, to me, like what drives you and what is going to get you from point A to point B. It's like having those executive functioning skills to like either plan out how you're going to make your life your profession, sort of, because it's like the line being an artist and like a person are so much more blurry than go to your day job and then come home and do whatever. You know what I mean? It's like you really, really have to be committed and live your profession and live your life, almost at all moments.
Yeah, we're always on call, I feel like.
Yep. Whether it's like a text or something about a gig, or whether it's writing your own stuff. And one of the things that's been crazy, especially during the quarantine and this whole balancing of work and fun stuff, is like you have to think about that stuff anyway. It's like music is fun and it's like our passion, but at the same time, like how do we make a living? And how do we decide how to compartmentalize that time? And that's a skill within itself that I feel like a lot of people struggle with.
Right. I definitely struggle with that. I feel like probably a lot of people struggle with that, just like balancing, because it's like we have all the time in the world, but then there's this like music is so much about vibe, I feel like it's so when there's this like dark cloud vibe overhead, it's kind of like I don't know if I'm feeling it kind of thing. But I mean, for you, are you able to kind of what am I trying to say?
Compartmentalize. You got it.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Compartmentalize. I couldn't think of it. Are you able to kind of push out all the darkness and just kind of focus on like creative process, or does that kind of weigh you down in a sense?
It kind of ebbs and flows. I have been paying less attention to the news cycle. Like especially at the beginning of this stuff, I was darker mentally, probably because I was paying more attention and really wanted to be informed. But now that we're kind of letting it stew a little bit, I feel like I've mentally let go a little bit. And just trying to find that balance, like I said, between the fun music, the working music, and hopefully there's some crossover, and then the life and having a life and a house and stuff.
Right. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, but I feel like you are kind of living the American dream, whatever that is. Like you're a musician, you're a homeowner, you have, a wife, you're able to have land. I mean, a lot of people, in maybe big in New York or LA, they probably, houses are millions of dollars. They're not able to afford it. So like, and I think a lot of people chase, sometimes myself included, but a lot of people, chase, I played with who, or I played with so-and-so, and, they don't have $1 to their name, and, they don't have a house. Like, and I mean, we were talking earlier, I know that the house is like probably one of the best investments you could have ever made. It's like, it appreciates in value. So it's super, like, I feel like for people watching, you don't necessarily need to be playing on stage with Chris Bodie or whatever, to have that's cool. But like, it's like the dream, I'm looking at, you got a kitchen, it's like, you got a yard, it's like, it's great, so like,
it's finding, it's finding like what means the most to you, and like, how do you go after it, and I've definitely given up certain other dreams to have this one, It's like I could move or something like that, but where I'm at right now, I'm really happy, and
that's great.
Yeah.
So like, let's zoom out a bit. What are some of your favorite, like, or most prominent musical experiences, I guess, in your professional career, after college? What are some of your favorite moments?
Definitely the international touring has been really fun. I would say the most fun I've ever had, probably because I spent the most time away, was the month in the Netherlands with a theater group called Rhythmic Circus. And that group has kind of evolved into the Rhythm Street Movement project I'm doing now. But we spent pretty much the whole month of October, I think it was 2013, in the Netherlands. And we stayed, the best long-term housing, cost-wise, was in a safari park. It was this random like theme park, and it's like one side of it's like a zoo safari that you drive through in your car, and then the other side of it is like a resort with like a river that goes through it in these little cabins. And so we had like five cabins between the 13 of us or whatever, and we took these 2 vans to all these theaters, and the production company would meet us with all of our gear, and it was just great time. We played, I think, like 20 or 23 gigs in 30 days or something like that. So it was.
You guys were working.
It was a lot of work, but it was a small enough country where the traveling was really easy. The people were super nice. Everything was super, clean and organized, and it just was really easy. There was like no real hiccups that happened at all. Hanging out in Amsterdam and all these other places were really great, and to be away for that long and to home base in one spot for that long was super, super cool.
Okay, right on. I feel like the international travel is usually some of the most fun, for us. I mean, it's the perks of the job, I feel like. And you're currently the MD for this group, correct?
The Rhythm Street Movement, yep.
Can you tell people about the Rhythm Street Movement, just a couple sentences of like what it is?
Yep. So right now it's really kind of like an umbrella production company. We really do a lot of stuff. We produced a whole holiday show called Who Brought the Humbug? And we debuted that at the Lab Theater. We just had our second year at the Kohl's Center. We sold out about half of our performances. We're going to do it again this year for a 2 or 3 week run. And then we also have another theatrical show that we're doing. And I don't want to call it a musical, but it has enough themes, like enough theatrical type themes and characters to make it kind of flow and give the theater audience something to be engaged with and something to connect the songs. The songs are all really inspirational, collaborative songs between a bunch of our friends. We have an album that came out last fall, and it's all original music. And just hopefully after this whole quarantine thing is over, we'll get right back to working on that. We're looking at like a fall, early next year release type thing.
Right on. You guys have anything scheduled in the books like this year, 2020, or are you kind of like just waiting and seeing?
We have some stuff in the fall. We're doing some booking conference type stuff. The theater world, you really have to kind of get your foot in the door with that sort of thing. There's kind of different regional things in the U.S. That we'll go to. I think there's one in Omaha in September that we're going to. As of right now, it's still planned on being happening. The release for the holiday show will still happen. This will be the third year at the Kohl's Theater, hopefully in December. And then hopefully in 2021, right after that show, like in January, February, we will release this second musical kind of piece thing.
Right on. And is any of that music on Spotify or iTunes? I can link everything.
Yep.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah, our album is really fun. Each song kind of is its own single that lives on its own planet musically. So you might hear something that is a bunch of acoustic guitars and a woodwind solo section in it, and then you might hear, like a super pop song, next, or a super funk song. So it's a really fun mix. It's all different singers on the songs, all Twin Cities friends and collaborators, all original. And then there's also tap dancing on this whole thing. And that's kind of the modern element for dance is to kind of take this tap dancing thing to another world and have it be in pop music. Not as like the soloist, like you think of like the 40s or 50s and you think of like a smoky jazz bar and some guy tap dancing with a combo, or like with a big band like the Duke Ellington kind of stuff, where there are solo elements and there's solis and stuff, but it's kind of like a mix between like urban stomp kind of stuff and then classic tap dancing stuff. So you might have like a DC go-go beat that the percussion layer is tap dance or something.
That's wild. I was watching the clips online, and I feel like to really get the experience, you probably have to be there. Like, it was really cool, but I feel like hearing all the, the stomping and hearing everything and all the audio-visual thing would really just pop live. So hopefully one day I can make it out,
It's a fun one. I'll make sure you can get a ticket or something to the Christmas show.
Okay.
If you're back in town,
I'm here.
If you're back in town visiting the fam.
Sweet. Yeah, I'll link all the tour dates and everything in the description box below.
Cool.
So, what are some of your favorite like albums growing up, or some musicians? I know this is like the worst question for.
I actually love talking about this.
Yeah.
So, my first couple favorite bands were really crappy, and it was pretty much all the alternative rock that was on the radio. I grew up in the Maryland area. The Washington, D.C. greater kind of metro area. And there was just a couple radio stations that were the alternative rock thing. And so around our age, it was like the Green Days, the Blink-182s, the Sum 41s, Good Charlotte, all that stuff. And then the Linkin Parks and stuff came around, and then it kind of evolved into the new metal, POD, Korn, all that stuff. But
Puddle of Mud.
So yeah, exactly. Chevelle, and so I was listening to all that stuff basically up until middle school. My parents listened to like oldies and classic rock, so I feel like I had that kind of in the back pocket, but it wasn't something that I listened to. And then when I really remember like really digging into one singular band in middle school, and it was Nirvana. And then it basically, I kind of moved farther back in time, and it went, after that it was like Guns N' Roses, AC/DC, and Led Zeppelin. And I remember having those particular CDs, and I listened to them all the time on the bus. It was like Live in Germany, the AC/DC concert, Appetite for Destruction, Guns N' Roses, and then once I kept moving back in time, once I got to Zeppelin, it was like game over. I couldn't get enough in like high school. Like I would record like the bass and the guitar and the drum parts separately into Sonar by Cakewalk, and I would import the MP3 of the Zeppelin tune and try to lay down all the parts together, and that was just the most fun ever. And then from there it branched off into like the more classic guitar players like Clapton, Hendrix, and Stevie Ray Vaughan, I would say, were like the next step after Jimmy Page.
Yeah, the Holy Trinity.
And then I got super into that, and then I feel like that is when I started to get good at guitar. It was when I was doing the Zeppelin, AC/DC, Hendrix, and Clapton thing. Like I really wasn't playing guitar up until late middle school. It had been piano from a really young age, because my mom played, and then trumpet in 4th grade. Like you add the typical band instrument, you become a band kid or a choir kid or a theater kid or whatever. And then pretty much it was like the classic rock stuff. And then from there I kind of switched it back and kind of with that new lens kind of went forward in time again. And I had a couple guitar player friends that were listening to like Paul Gilbert and like Dream Theater. That was one of the guys. And so I started to listen to that a bunch. Other guys were listening to like Jeff Beck and Steely Dan. And so like having this new like super guitar hero lens, going back to all this music, like finding Rush, all this stuff was just super fun. And then right at the end of high school, I discovered guitar players like that started to cross me over into like blues and jazz and stuff like that, or more of the jazz blues stuff. And it was Scofield and Mike Stern in particular were the two catalysts. I remember watching that Sunny video with the Pat Martino trio with Scofield sitting in.
I know exactly that video. Yeah.
And I remember, Pat Martino takes a solo and he does the here, I should start recording this, but he does the forever,
I've seen him live. He does the same thing.
Yep. And he was another guy. Once I got more into bebop and jazz, Martino was the dude to get me into the bebop phrasing for guitar, because I was never a guy to really, really study like the Charlie Parker bebop, like the father of bebop type stuff, and the dizzy, that phrasing I was doing on trumpet, but it wasn't translating, like the triplet stuff and all like the turns were not translating for me for guitar as much. And when I heard Martino and started reading about his like the modal conversion and like convert to minor stuff, that really helped bridge the bebop gap. But from going from the blues rock into the fusion in the jazz was definitely Scofield and Stern. To hear like Mike Stern, play the next to freaking like Michael Brecker or something like that.
Right.
It's like, oh, I guess you can do that. But then also those guys just lay down the sickest bebop lines too. Stern, listening to Stern play over standards, like his version of like Nardis or any of those, were really eye-opening. Hearing, these kind of more crossover guys play over super standards, and then hearing them play their own music, and it's more kind of the rock fusion type stuff. and then it led me to all like the super shredder guys, like the Guthrie Govans and the Tom Quayle type internet guitar players. And I haven't spent too much time on that, but you know.
Yeah, that's intimidating stuff.
But the stuff that had the most impact on me were probably those crossovers, the crossover guys like Stern and Scofield, and then Holdsworth, Metheny, and then after looking at their stuff, both from a harmonic compositional standpoint, it made so much other stuff easier. Like going into the funk and neo soul stuff, all the harmonic shifts and things like that made a little bit more sense. Having like the trickle down jazz effect.
Right.
That's why I tell my students all the time is like listen to music or learn some music that will make other music easier for you, if that makes sense. Like as soon as your ears are opened up and you can recognize what chords are or hear progressions being reused in different songs or different places, it just builds your vocabulary to not be confused by what you're hearing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Growing up, did you ever have like a rock trio kind of thing?
Oh yeah, I went through phases of having different bands in high school. We started jamming to like Guns N' Roses and like AC/DC tunes, writing originals. I had a really good band in high school where we were doing some like neo soul fusion kind of stuff. We were learning about sus chords and using them too much.
Oh yeah, I probably still use them too much. Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like that really set the foundation for how to play with other people and to get really good experience trying to break down people's parts and how to write for other people and write for a band and things like that. And I really attribute a lot of that also to the musical programs that I had in middle school and high school, like all state, all county, both for jazz and for classical music. And my high school had a great program as well. We had a program called Rock and Roll Revival, which was like a huge thing. You would think it would be the nerdiest thing ever, but all the jocks and stuff went out and tried to be dancers or background singers. Just everybody wanted to do it. And it was super high quality. They had students teach the material to the other students, so you got to be in kind of leadership positions. You learned how to chart tunes and write and read lead sheets, and I think that was just invaluable. And going into college with that expectation was already a game changer, especially a place like St. Thomas where you had people that didn't have a lot of real world gigging type experience. That really helped because it was like, oh, this is what you do, or this is how you write a lead sheet, this is how you learn how to learn music,
Right. And now I feel like I listen to your music and you mention a lot of the rock kind of gods, the guitar rock gods, and a lot of your music online now is under your own name is acoustic, right? So how did you kind of transition into that, or how did you find your own voice in the acoustic? Given that all your people you've cited are electric players, so tell me about that transition.
So the acoustic stuff, I have always played acoustic guitar. My first guitar was like a cheap nylon student model classical string guitar, and so technically it started with acoustic stuff, but I would say the foundation for my real world music experience was in church, Catholic church, and I had a strong foundation there for acoustic guitar, some electric but mostly acoustic, finger picking, capo stuff, transposing, strumming patterns and things like that. I've been doing that since middle school, high school as well. And there's a ton of great acoustic players out there that I really admire. Tommy Emmanuel, Doyle Dykes, all those guys, Eric Mongrain. You got all the modern guys like Andy McKee that do all the crazy slap tap stuff. But yeah, I just have gravitated towards fingerstyle guitar. I never could keep nails on my right hand. Even for the classical stuff that I played, it was always switching between guitar, or acoustic and electric, and nylon strings. So I'd break nails all the time, and I didn't want to do the fake nails or the nail polish thing. So it became play with the pads, my fingers. But acoustic guitar is something I've done for a long time. I feel like I increased my acoustic guitar chops when I realized how many gigs there were for solo acoustic guitar. whether it be like weddings or corporate things. And so I feel like I really stepped up my game, in college for that kind of stuff as well. But yeah.
And so do you ever play out any of that stuff? Because I know a lot of it seems like one of your albums, like Catholic hymns, it seems like, and then am I understanding that the latest release was like basically to help people sleep?
Yep.
Yeah.
So part of that is that stuff has kind of always been something that I can play and just gravitate towards. Part of it also is to try to build like some sort of Spotify following or play count.
Just doing well.
I'm very surprised.
It's awesome, dude. Congrats. It's like doing well.
I'm happily surprised. I have a company that I'm working with that's helping me with some of the marketing stuff for that, and they're helping me with the releases. But for the most part, the strategy for those type of tunes was to get streams, and so it was to be a little bit more generic, which I'm okay with. There's, I guess, some mental letting go, but I'm writing those tunes not to be super, super artistic, but I'm writing them kind of with a purpose for them to be streaming material and something to have integrity to me, but not to be super crazy, and something that I don't want to stress over too much. And if it does well, it does well. If it doesn't, I'll try something else, But that's why some of the albums are named like sleeping music or relaxing guitar originals. It's for the people that literally, there's plenty of people out there that go on Google or they go on Spotify or YouTube and they just search literally those words. Like what's really crazy to me right now, if you search on Google verbatim relaxing guitar originals plural, my album comes up first. So like if people are searching this keyword stuff, then it's kind of hilarious to me because it's like a marketing thing.
Yeah, I mean, did the company help you, build SEO, or is it just like?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe they're helping me build SEO, and they're just they're submitting it to some playlists and things like that, and they're running their own playlists. And it's a company, I think they're in Edina, and they're a licensing group, and they mostly have done piano, and so they're kind of expanding to the guitar thing, and it's way easier for me to do original stuff and to either write music for this streaming purpose, generic kind of thing, or to improvise some of it, and I was trying to figure out a way to make it just an easier process for me compared to like all the piano players that have MIDI and you can just do pads. If you mess up, you just keep going. You just edit it later.
Right.
And like the whole mixing and mastering thing isn't. With VSTs, it's like just so easy.
Yeah, it's so easy. Yeah.
So I've been trying to figure out how to make the process a little bit easier for me, and using effects and more reverb and printing wet dry mixes and things like that have been helping to try to get in that zone. But it's mostly to be semi-generic music, even though I hate to say it. The purpose for that is pretty much streaming.
I mean, that makes sense. We gotta eat, you got a house, you got a mortgage, like you gotta make music that people listen to. It can't be all, weird time signatures and the crazy stuff that only musicians get. So. And
I it's not like I don't enjoy that stuff. I really love acoustic guitar, and I don't need to stress about it, but it's something I can do from home and make money, and especially now that is catching on a little bit especially on Spotify. I'm really thankful to have that getting built up.
And moving forward, is there anything that you really want to accomplish in the next 5, 10, 15 years as a musician, or maybe in your personal life that you're really trying to do and maybe you haven't quite gotten there, or I don't know, tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, one of the things I definitely want to do personal-wise, I want to be a dad at some point. So that's going to take some time and planning and financial support. I feel like I've gone through a lot of inner conflict about whether I move and where I live. I would really like to live in another place right now that is more music friendly than Minneapolis, and especially music industry friendly. That's one thing I really, really am bummed about in Minneapolis is the lack of industry eye here, and the lack of real go-getters. I mean, there's a lot of them here, but they seem to be few and far between as far as people that can actually really get out and do their thing.
Right.
I want to keep recording more. I want to get my own music out there more. I think I've taken a little bit too long to get my own music, both this funk, soul stuff out, but also some like jazz fusion stuff. I think I've sat on my hands too long just with gigging and other things. And then one of the other things is I want to really get my educational side of things going, and I want to look for more grants, both locally and nationally, that I can go for, and I really want to build up that part to this whole musical package that I'm trying to build here.
Right.
And then one of the big things is to get that Rhythm Street movement production back on track and back on the road for touring and for more recording and things like that. We're about halfway done, like a short holiday album that's got a bunch of original tunes on it. And then we, like I said, we have that full-length album that came out in the fall. So hopefully we'll be able to do some more stuff and get our stage show ready. We actually already have a bunch of props and staging being built for a tour that we don't have yet. But yeah.
Those are all great goals, man. If you could live, going back to what you initially said first, like, is there a place that you're kind of gravitating towards, or somewhere's calling you as far as, living somewhere else?
The greatest city for me, for who lives there and for kind of what it stands for, is New York. And every time I go there, I just feel musically energized. Like every single time I try to stay longer. I try to hit up friends, go see as many shows, go see the Wayne Krantz or Mike Stern show at the 55 bar.
Yeah, it's right in Soho.
Dude,
every, Tuesday or Monday or something? It's crazy. It's like $15.
Yeah, dude, it's insane. And to have guys like Nate Smith and like just all these insanely good musicians around, and having access, even though you're probably going to be poor living there as a musician and hustling super hard, I just am musically energized all the time.
Right.
So that's one reason I would want to go there. Another thing that I've thought about is to live somewhere outside of the U.S. I think would be really good, just like culturally, just to grow as a person and, to really see kind of the world differently. And if music could be the way to do that, get a gig somewhere or have a tour based out of some other country, or if recording is what can support me or something like that, that would be really, really fun to go live in another country, maybe Europe.
They take care of people there. That's
yeah.
True.
Yep. No kidding. But yeah, I just want to go where I can feel comfortable about making a living, feel really good about who I'm around and who I'm associating with, and just keep building,
And as far as your original music, do you ever see yourself gigging or touring under your own name, Dave Feily kind of thing?
I hope so. I've always been reluctant to do that, especially because, at least in like the pop sense, I don't sing, or I don't sing lead stuff that much.
Got it.
And so I've been super self-conscious about that aspect of it. Like I always joke to myself, oh, things would be different if I could sing. But I don't think about that stuff too much, but I would really like to get a group out, especially seeing such a great response with even just the quarantine funk stuff, both from friends and from people watching and stuff. It's been great, and all that for me is throwing on a click and starting with bass and just trying to put down a minute of ideas of something fun, And so if I can get that together, why shouldn't I be able to do some other stuff that people would like? But one of the things, just in terms of touring, that I think has been really tough that I've been figuring out is how to tour out of Minnesota. And that has been extremely, extremely difficult, especially for the kinds of music that I want to play. You look at the neighboring states, you've got Iowa, North South Dakota, and Wisconsin. And for anything instrumental, for the most part, or funk, it's really tough to try to build your scene or build an audience there. And I've tried to do it with New Sound Underground, and I've tried to see that it happen with other bands, and it's just really tough. Like I feel like if you go west at all, you might as well skip a bunch of the states and go right to Denver,
That's what a lot of touring acts do, basically.
And we're flyover country for a lot of big acts as well.
Yep.
And so like going back to like there's a lack of industry eye here because it's hard for us to get out. It's like it's so expensive if I was to fly,
to break it up a little bit.
Oh, I was gonna say it's so expensive if you were to go to the East Coast or West Coast for like 2 weeks, lodging, meals, all that stuff.
Right.
And if you have no following, unless you can get on like a bigger bill or something like that, create an online presence. That's what it seems like, especially for guys like Corey. It was like create this online presence, really backpack off of the Wolfpack stuff, and ride that into the sun. Or ride it into the distance.
Seems like he's doing all right for himself, that's for sure.
Yeah, looking at his whole game plan has been really inspiring, I remember seeing him back in the Artist Quarter days, downtown St. Paul on the Tuesday nights, same with Kevin and those guys, and kind of trying to figure out what works, and then once something, ignites or sparks, you really go for it, So
finding your lane, your thing.
Yeah. And it's tough. Like, especially, I feel like for me, I'm playing so many different instruments and I'm playing so many different genres. It's like, is it going to be easier or harder for me to get noticed? For people to pick me up or to play with somebody or for whatever reason. Like, there's times where I think I'm a better bass player than I am a guitar player, And so it's like, should I switch, or how much should I be focusing on this, or should I be really,
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is, because I feel like humans like to put other people in boxes. Like, I think of Corey Wong as like a funk rhythm guitar player, for better or for worse. That's like, and a lot of times when we do that, we're limiting, like, he's probably, I've never met him, so he's probably able to do all this vast array of stuff, and I just like box him. But I don't know if that's from a marketing standpoint, like, wise, maybe he tried to do that,
I think so.
In a sense.
I absolutely think so.
And then, I get it. Like, dumb consumer gets it. Got it. Cool. Like, and then, it's easy for us. But, yeah, it's hard because, you do all these different styles of music, different genres. You have acoustic album. You want to do a jazz, stuff as well. It's like, how do you balance that? And I feel like someone that's done a good job at that is Glasper. Like, Glasper has a bunch of, he has like the he has this Robert Glasper, Experiment, and then he's got all these other, August Green. He's got all these other like incarnations of who he is, but it's like, oh, this is a different project, so like I'm gonna call it something different. It's not like Robert. It doesn't have his name on it necessarily. So I don't know. That's something I kind of look to. I was like, oh, that's a very clever way of, bottling up different packages of yourself, essentially.
Absolutely. Like, especially for the Rhythm Street Movement project, we've been trying to compartmentalize and just say, oh, this is what we're calling this show. This is what we're calling this show, and trying to keep it really tight, and so people know what you're doing. And I haven't figured out a good way to do that yet, especially because I don't have any of my other music streaming and stuff like that. So yeah, it's like you said, it's finding that balance and creating an image of how you want to present that to people,
Totally, man. Well, thank you. I think we're gonna start wrapping it up here because I think this is a kind of longer one. But dude, thank you so much for coming on.
Chop it up. Take all the bad parts out.
No, I like kind of leaving all the bad parts in because to me they're like human.
Yeah.
There's no bad parts either. I like the humanity of it. This is not going to be like a pop track kind of thing. I'm not gonna. So, man, but thank you so much for coming on with me. I'm going to link all your music and info below so people can kind of find you. As far as Skype lessons, I'll have your email address and all your original music, Spotify, iTunes, and then all the groups you're working with. I'll link that below so people can kind of check that out.
Sweet, dude.
So thank you so thank you so much, David, for coming on.
Absolutely.
And stay safe.
You too, man.
I'm gonna turn off these cameras real quick.